Welcome, everyone, to ResV Systems, the continuation of the interview series that I began at the beginning of the Rhode Island Boys High School season. Truth in advertising, I was sort of challenged to see if I could do as much content as possible during the, the Rhode Island Boys season. And have been lucky enough to really have this interview series get going with a lot of great people. Feel blessed to know all these people. And today I got a great one. I have Mason Andrade. Mason played for me at the club level. He was probably one of the most decorated high school guys in Rhode Island history, I think, and then also is now playing for Wentworth as the starting Libero, and he just won a GNAC championship. So really stoked to have Mason Andrade on. Welcome, Mason.
Thank you for having me.
So, man, I mean, I guess if you think about where your career has gone, it started off doing camps, I would guess, or doing like little clinics and whatnot. Because I remember when South County started getting going, and Coach Harry started reaching out to all of us about, this is what I'm doing. Would you be interested in helping and stuff like that? You were one of the guys that they were highlighting. They're saying, look, this kid Andre just keeps showing up and playing and working hard. So that's sort of my intro into your background. How did it get started, man?
So me and Matt Tiernan actually went to like a um South County introductional whatever.
Sure.
And it was just me and Matt Tiernan as like the guys there. And then there were like 15, 20 other like instructional like girls also doing like the same type of things. Um, that was like a week long camp. I
Mhm.
really got into it because of my sister, because she was playing at I think she was in high school by then. But she was also doing South County, and she really was the one like that got me into it. Um, but yeah, my
Yeah,
first
those
experience
clinics.
like, myself was with Matt Tiernan.
Who was your coach? Who was the coach of that clinic? Who was running it? Do you remember?
I think it was Mike.
Was it Mike? Wow, cool, cool. And then Gabby played for North Kingstown for 4 years, and she won a bunch of championships too. Yeah,
She only won two. The other
only
two she came
two.
in second. Yeah,
Well, I mean, runner up and championship, all that's good stuff.
it's
But
not bad, I guess.
she was in the final all 4 years. Yeah,
I think so.
and she was the starting setter, I believe, 3 out of the 4 years. Right? I think she was a DS that first year, and then
Yep.
she was yeah. Look at me and my memory, Mason. This is pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
When you got an old
Right.
guy like me trying to recall stuff, it's it's pretty good. And then after those clinics, like I guess, the next thing is you're working on it. And when did you sort of know? I mean, you're a very athletic kid, and now, man, when did you know that volleyball was the thing for you, man? Like I know there was other sports in your background.
Uh, I don't really know when like the switch happened, but like my freshman year, I played football, hockey, and volleyball. And like after my freshman year, like I was done with football. And I was still like enjoying hockey, but like I knew I probably wasn't like gonna go to college for it, but like I was enjoying volleyball and like it was something that I was pretty good at. And like I'd played a few summers like of beach with Matt. Um and like it was something that I enjoyed and like I thought I could probably go a little further in it. So I think that's kind of where the switch happened. And then with hockey, like I started to enjoy it less, and then I got hurt twice playing, so like it was kind of time to just start focusing on volleyball.
Yeah, volleyball, football, and hockey. I don't think I could think of three more different sports. Like football. I mean, football and hockey are collision sports, and there's definitely there's a physicality to those things that are way different than volleyball. But one's on ice, one's on a field, and then you have your indoor in the volleyball world. But that's interesting that the injury aspect. I mean, have you ever been hurt playing volleyball?
Um, Not that I can recall.
Knock on wood, right? I mean,
Yeah,
no no injuries going forward. But that was one of the biggest things, huh? Hey, like I'm not getting banged up playing this sport, and I'm pretty good at it.
yeah, it
Good
was
enough for
definitely a
me.
good motivator.
Yeah. So I guess that leads to the next part, which is, you know, you're doing high school. Well, actually, before high school, you were a club player, right? Did club would come first before high school, or vice versa?
It was club first.
Club first, then high school, and then you were playing for the 18-1s for what? 3 years, 2 years,
2 years.
2 years, which is actually a pretty good accomplishment in its own right. And with club and with high school, like, tell me some differences. Like, what was what did you? I mean, I guess you don't have to say whether you liked one over the other. They're just different experiences, certainly. But give me a little bit of background on both.
Um, well, I mean, my junior year, when I played like on the 18 ones for the first year, that team was basically the same.
Mm,
It was just the competition that was different.
mhm.
Most of that 18 ones team was NK, and then we had Dylan McClung and Matt Tiernan, and then I think KG was on that team too. But
I believe so. Yeah.
mm, but that most of that team was NK kids. So the transition from club to high school, like the team basically stayed the same. Um, and it was just like the difference in like competition. Um, and club was a little bit higher level. We um, still lost some games in club, and I was hoping we were gonna do a little better. And like that was right after COVID, so it was kind of hard to like branch out and play different competitions. So we ended up playing a lot of the same teams. But it was still good, and I definitely enjoyed that season. That was kind of a good learning year for me. Um, but high school was also fun. Not losing the game that year was definitely a cool experience.
Well, that NK team was loaded. I mean,
Yeah,
you had all with the exception of Dylan, and I'm sure there's a couple other. Well, you could say Maddie as well, but besides those two, you had that team had everybody, and then you also had Sebastian Yates, who came out of left field and was arguably, in my opinion, the best player in the state that year. I mean,
yeah,
you could say Dylan was in the conversation. Dylan got a lot of kills, but I think in terms of all around play, like, Yatesy was the best guy there. And he just sort of fell into your lap, and he just happened to be the one guy who could slow Dylan down a little bit. So it was like perfect. And the COVID stuff, I mean, man, I remember that season pretty well because, it was different. It was a very big transition in my life, number one. And then number two, yeah, man, what, we practiced once a week, maybe twice a week if we got lucky.
yeah,
And you couldn't play anybody really. And we had one major tournament, and that was it. And we ended up winning the silver in the open, which was pretty cool. I mean, it was a tournament to play, and we did all right. I think we would have liked a better finish. I'm with you there as well, but that team, with the allowed preparation that was given, I think we did okay. And we had some injuries too. Like, Nolan wasn't around. I mean, he was hurt most of the season, if I recall, which allowed Maddie to play a lot. And then
Zach was hurt,
yeah,
which
yeah,
allowed Sebs playing all right.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I've forgotten all about. I mean, he got hurt early, and I remember when he got hurt, I thought he wasn't. I thought it wasn't that big a deal because I know he had sort of gotten his fingers sort of into the net somehow, and it didn't. When I looked at it, because he showed it to me, I didn't get this feeling that he was in bad shape. But then I guess when they got in there, it was not good.
Yeah, and
And
him and Cheney getting their fingers dislocated on the same night of practice.
Oh, that was wild. Cheney, that's the point. That's exactly the point, because Cheney's looked gruesome. Like, I remember looking at
Oh
Cheney's and I
God,
was like, "Oh my god!" Like,
sideways.
we're not going to see that kid again. And then it was the reverse. Like, Cheney was sort of back next week and doing his thing, and poor Zach was out for really the most of the season, and most of the high school season, if I recall. Like, he was not anywhere near. I mean, his hand, whatever happened, it was not great, and it was it was challenging. Although I did like Yatesy on the right. I mean, certainly he had the ability to play on the left, but the kid was just real good, and having a right side blocker of that capability, I really liked him over there, and he could score. He was a kid from Vegas. I mean, that was I mean, for those that don't know, he basically, as a senior, moved to Rhode Island from Las Vegas because his dad got relocated to Narragansett. No, it wasn't Narragansett. It was Quonset Point. And here this kid is going, "What am I doing here in the middle of a pandemic?" Like, it was pretty funny. But he was a good guy, right? Like you guys, I mean, all you NK guys seemed like you had a really close, you guys all got along with each other, and so
Absolutely.
yeah, and he was just another good fit for them. Oh yeah. And then the next year. So now you're a senior, you're 18 ones. Talk about that club experience and that high school season's a little bit different.
Yeah. So that club year, I think, was I the only NK kid on that team? I think I
Uh
was.
yeah, I mean, we had more Charahoe guys like Tyler and Boudry and Maddie were Charahoe.
Yep.
You were on the left. Who was our 02? Was it
Jordan.
it was Jordan. That's a Cranston East kid. And then we had a couple of Barrows, one from classical and Tyson, and then we had um,
Vincent, also
Vincent,
from.
who was Cranston East. Yeah, so there really wasn't a big representation of North Kingstown this time around. There was a lot of them on 18 twos and threes, if I recall.
Yep.
But yeah, you might have been the lone skipper that time.
Yep. So that was definitely different, not having all like the NK kids, but like I was still very close with all like those 18-1 guys, and it was a definitely a different experience being one of the taller kids on the team. Um,
We were small.
we
we
were
were
very small.
we were
Um,
small. I mean, we had Nikki, and Nikki was 5'10", 5'9", and then we had Big Jack. I mean, Jack 6'5", 6'6". He was 6'5", really. Boudry 6'5", um,
AJ was pretty
AG
tall.
6'3",
Pretty
six
tall.
four, and then Tyler was about 6'2", 6'3", and that was about it. That was our size, and then we were just a bunch of smaller athletes with great. I mean, we were good ball control guys, and we made smart shots, and we played college level volleyball in terms of schematic and stuff. But we were undersized in almost every match we played.
Yeah. Um, that was definitely a good season. I enjoyed playing with all those guys and taking a little bit more responsibility on that team. Um,
Hmm.
and then that transitioned really well for me going into the high school season. After a year of like, or after a season playing club of like having a more of a leadership role, like
Hmm.
going into NK and also having a leadership role and like trying to help out like some new guys on varsity or like even Ryan and Cody coming in, even though they're very experienced with like the volleyball world, like it was different playing with a bunch of guys that are about to graduate from high school. Like,
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, people downplay that, but the mechanics of how a team is built on age in terms of seniors, juniors, sophomore, freshmen, like that's a big deal in high school world. It's not just something that gets glossed over. I think almost in the club world, it doesn't matter. Like no one really cares. But when you go into the high school realm, like that matters a ton. And that takes some helping. It just does, younger dudes and older dudes. It takes a little bit to everyone find their place in the hierarchy and do their job, whatever it may be. That's
yeah,
interesting. You took like 1,000 swings that season too, right?
something like that. It was a lot. My shoulder's still bugging me.
I believe it. Maddie Tiernan is doing the same thing right now, right?
Can't believe it. I saw you had 96 attempts against classical. I could never. Like I was so glad that like our NK team moved the ball around a little bit more than
Oh,
Matt's team is doing.
dude, they're just setting him over and over and over again. Back row, front row, doesn't matter.
Yep.
He's putting up crazy numbers. Like I can't recall the last time I mean, the problem is that when I was a college coach, I didn't keep track of stuff as much. I knew kids that I wanted to recruit and get out to, but I didn't. Now as sort of ResV and I keep track of all these stats and all these rankings and stuff, it's a little different. But McClung put up 30 once or twice. Maddie's done it 3 times and he's put up 41, and it's like those are big boy numbers right now. And he's taking a ton of swings too, but he's hanging in there. But I guess that's one thing. I know he's going to watch this interview. You have any advice for Matt in terms of how many swings?
That shoulder. Take
Yeah,
care of your body. Like
yeah, yeah.
drink lots of liquids. Eat right.
Go see J Tab.
Go to JTAB training.
Yeah, yeah. Joey does a nice job. How long you been working with him?
I think I started either sixth or seventh grade.
Wow,
Like it
that's
was
a
early.
long
I've been
time.
going there for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah. And I mean, you've always been physically pretty powerful. You've been, really, I've never had to worry about you breaking down. I think about, again, I wasn't there I'm not your high school coach, but the club coach I was, and I never was thinking, all right, well, Mason might get hurt here. I mean, there's always the ankles and the shoulders. Those are the two things that usually become a problem for players. But you were always built pretty powerful, so I never had to worry about that. Which, I mean, you really could say the JTAB training has helped a ton. I mean, you still
Absolutely.
go now, right? I mean, after your
Yep.
first year of college, you're right back at it, yeah.
Mhm. I went this morning. It was good. Um, uh, yeah, I've been trying to go at least 3 times a week. Um, and he's got me on like his program. It's
Mhm.
uh, it's really been helpful. Like,
Do you lift a lot in season? Like when you're in season at Wentworth, were you doing a lot of lifting?
uh, in season it was tough. Um,
Mhm.
because at Wentworth, like we're all either like engineering or something similar.
Mhm.
So a lot of our time goes to our academics, and this year with like coaching issues, like we needed to move our practice back from 5 to 7. So
Mm,
it's hard to schedule lifts around that time
mm,
because a lot of people's classes were ending at 5. And then like if you're going to the trainers, you get to the trainers at 5:45, but you also need to eat. So like it was
mhm.
just a long day and it was very hard to like take the energy to go into the weight room at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh, sure, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like,
Very challenging. Um, all right, cool. Well, we'll get back to Wentworth. I'm not ready to dive into the Wentworth stuff yet, and I don't know how much Coach Giglio is going to let you talk about it, but certainly, I want to do that in a bit. But I do want to ask, the basic question, like, what was your favorite high school moment? It can be a match or a thing, and then favorite club moment.
ooh, I don't know. Like, ooh, I always winning the championship is always a good time. Um,
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think anyone thought you guys were gonna beat LaSalle last year. Like I think if people were honest, I mean, sure they'd tell you now, oh, I had NK the entire way, right? Because hindsight's 2020. But I think there was plenty of people that are like, oh, well, LaSalle's got, the better team this time, and they were actually playing, they were dominant while you guys were sort of up and down all over the place. And really, if you look at the scores, like, I mean, you guys really pulled one out of the fire.
yeah. LaSalle kind of gave us a set to bring us back in. I think it was the second set that I think they were up a little bit like late in the game, and we came back um and won that one. They kind of gave us some new life, but playing with a bunch of like new kids who haven't played in the state championship before, like it took them a little bit of time to like get into it.
Mm,
So it was nice for LaSalle to give us one because looking back, like we probably should have gotten swept, but they were able to
yeah,
rally
I
back
mean
and
that's why you play the matches. I mean, I called that match. I was one of the broadcasters on there, and it was weird as it's unfolding in front of me. I'm like, wow, there's certain things that you talk about, and there's certain things you don't. Like, you can't in that environment. I'm not taking a side. I'm just sort of calling it as I see it and whatnot. But in the back of my head, I'm going, man, if LaSalle just pushes on the gas here, this could be over quick. And they just weren't able to, for whatever reason, whether it was decisions that were made or bad bouncers or what have you. There was always something that kept that, kept, I was going to say, kept that skipper team in the game, but your team in the game.
yeah,
Something always stuck in, and then next thing you know, you have opportunities to take a set here. Oh, it took a set there. Now we're playing for the championship. It
yeah.
was pretty wild.
I
So I
just
could totally
remember like
understand. Yeah.
I just remember like in between sets or like during timeouts, um, Coach Hesford kept saying like, "Hey, we keep like our serving pressure up and our serve receive like good. Like if we can keep them in that system, um, some points when it was like closer in sets, like Jack would stop taking swings and he'd start tipping or rolling. And like when he did that, like our defense was usually pretty good. So we were able to get like a
Yeah.
ball up and then
Yeah.
hopefully make something out of it.
Yeah, and that's something that I think this year's LaSalle team is looking to fix, which is,
Yeah.
instead of um, when things get tight and things get uncomfortable, instead of sort of tipping and rolling, really looking to blast away, because they have the arms to do it. I mean, if you think about some of the things that we used to talk about at the club level, when you played for me, the whole schematic was, we are asking you to tip and roll. Like, if you tip and roll, we're planning on it, and we're going to pick that up and we're going to run offense on you. So if you do that, you're playing into our hands. And I don't know if that was Coach Hesford's thought pattern on it, but that was certainly mine. So, if you're in a situation where you're tipping and rolling, you're giving us points.
Yeah,
So I suspect that LaSalle will fix that one this time around.
I'm sure.
But the same thing happened this year. Like with 18-1 South County, we ended up winning the major at Mohegan. And one of the things that happened was, like, we served tough, and when it came down to match points and big time points, like, they started not taking rips, and I was like, oh, you're gonna let us continue to score. That's nice of you. And we end up
Yeah.
winning it. So I mean, it's definitely, when you're playing men's volleyball, or big boy volleyball, high school volleyball, it's about swinging. It's not, good things happen when you swing hard.
Mhm.
It doesn't mean swing, you know arrogantly or without thought. Like, if there's a giant block there, like, go around, or high hands expand, or do something else, but don't
Yeah.
just haphazardly bang the ball into the block, because it will come back on your side very fast.
Right.
But 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 tips and rolls are not, uh, the men's game is just, it doesn't work as well. I think with the women you can get away with it a little bit, because you can spot it differently, and certainly there are opportunities where a lot of times those tips and rolls are just to get them off balance, to get the ball back. But you do that to the men's game, they're just going to pick it up and run offense. So,
Yep.
all right, and the best club moment, man. I'll tell you mine if you want.
Yeah,
That you
I'm
were
good.
involved
Get
in.
some inspiration.
I'll give you some inspiration. The best club moment for us was, your senior year, was when we were down in Pennsylvania and we played Yorktown. I know we lost that match, and I know, we lost. I believe we lost 2-0, and then either before or after, I forget which one, but we won. We lost three. We lost 2-1 to um, a very good Rochester team as well. Hot
Mhm.
shots, right? Like, those are the two matches that I love the most, because those are the two top teams there, and they wanted to play their subs on us, and we were good enough where they couldn't do that, and they had to play us straight. And each set was 25-23, 25-22, and we made them so annoyed. Like, they were so unhappy with playing us, because we were, terms of where we were selected to go to that tournament, we were like a last seed, because no one had heard about South County in New York, in Pennsylvania, New York. No one
Mhm.
cares. Like, South County, that doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
And here we are. We go to this tournament, the Pennsylvania bid, and we're a bunch of little guys, and we're everyone's 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and we didn't win a lot of games, but we absolutely scared everybody we played, especially on day one, which was a lot of fun. So, that Yorktown game, especially, I know those guys. They're interesting guys.
Mhm.
And so, like, to earn their respect was huge. And I gotta think, and I have no proof of this, but I gotta think that your performance that first day helped a ton when it came time for people to make selections for high school All-American, because you were selected second team All-American in high school, which, by the way, I've been doing this for a long time. I can't recall ever there being an All-American high school player from Rhode Island. It just hasn't happened.
Mhm.
So, for you to be selected was a giant deal. And I know the NK social media tried to push it hard. I think they should have doubled their efforts. Like, it was a really big deal. And I gotta think that, some people saw us play and saw you play at Bain and was like, all right, like, they're not winning, but they ain't losing either. Like,
Yeah.
they're doing some cool things. And we did. We ran Bix, we ran goes, we did all the proper college stuff. And I think Maddie actually set very, very well that tournament. I think, the wheels came off in day two, but the reason I think the wheels came off had a lot to do with the fact that we were given everything we had on day one and the first match of day two, and we were just sort of spent going into the second half of day two, which was, it was unrelenting.
Yeah.
There's nobody bad at that tournament. And when I think we finished, we finished 16 out of 18, which ain't great, but still was a good showing. And then the next year, the same South County team with a new cast of characters, we went down there and finished sixth. So we've improved quite a bit there. And but I think that moment is my favorite. I don't know if you share
I was actually thinking that. I was like, do I say like that we lost to two teams? But
that.
um, yeah. Other than that, like I'd have to say like going down to Boston our last year. Um, well, again, like we didn't really win um or place where we wanted to. Like I thought it was still a very good showing for us, and like I thought
Mm,
we played well, and it was a good time for me.
yeah. Yeah. And those teams, man, the one that you started on when you were 17 and then the 18 and then those two teams set the table for where that South County team is now. It was my first year doing club, and when you were 17, and we were able to through COVID create a pretty good squad that did some cool stuff, and then we followed it up with some even cooler stuff. But it's been part of the progression, and it's really been neat. With those teams, especially Yorktown and Hot Shots, and then we had some real good teams like Sport Time and Smash certainly, and some of those like. Tell me a little bit about playing those teams and how that sort of got you thinking about the college level. Because I think as fun as Rhode Island volleyball is, those teams are better. Like those are better. It's better volleyball. It's higher level volleyball. It's collegiate type volleyball. And how did that prep you for the college transition?
Yeah, it definitely like helped because you have to start thinking a little different, like especially when you're swinging and like you're in to receive. Like, a lot of times, like in Rhode Island, like you're just gonna get like athletes, and which are fantastic. Like, it's great that like athletes are going out and they're able to get a starting spot like on a team. But at the club level, everyone is there to play volleyball. Like that is like something they're passionate about. So you're
Mm,
seeing a lot of very high level serves, and like you have to figure out a way to still like get it past the target, and like it's really tough. Like sometimes you just gotta put it high in the middle of the court. Um,
yeah,
we did that a lot.
we
And
did.
like
Then
um,
fast forward to Wentworth, you had to do it again a lot. I mean, you guys saw serving. I'm not ready to jump into Wentworth, but it is sort of an interesting pivot point because if you think about the serving that you guys saw, being one of the top 15 teams in the country, you saw some bangers.
yeah, it's definitely a completely different level. Like even from club and playing at that Pennsylvania tournament,
Mm,
like whole different breed. Um, Yeah, but like playing those club tournaments, it definitely got you thinking about some different stuff. Like you're seeing a lot more closed double blocks, and like then you have to start working hands and like actually trying to swing around and get people out of system and
mm.
like keep the ball alive. Like
Actually, had the opportunity to recycle a ball finally.
yeah,
There's no recycling in Rhode Island. You either split the block, hammer through, or you get blocked. But I mean, it's but the rarity of seeing a solid double block and then it's tight and you're able to just pop it back and get the ball. I don't think I think I've seen it happen twice this season where someone tried to do it and I was like, oh, and Nikki was one of them, and I was like, all right, Nick, yes, good stuff. I like that, but
yeah.
it is different. Before we go to the pivot to Wentworth, I know one of the things that you used to do at the high school level, though I don't know to the level, you used to watch a lot of film and used to ask a lot of questions. Explain a little bit the value in those two things in terms of your development as a player.
Uh, at first, like when I would watch film, it would kind of just be like I was kind of just staring at the screen and like following the ball and like watching like people score back and forth. But like as soon as you start like finding where you're gonna play and like the position that you're trying to get better at. Like you start to focus in on what those players are doing when the ball isn't on their side of the court, or
Mm-hmm.
when like they do or don't make the first pass, and like how that like changes their approach and like how they play, um like that point out, and like you start to really focus in on like what you can do to make your play style better.
Mm.
Uh, and I do still wish that I watched more film in high school. And like even watching film of like yourself is very valuable. And like of course like you want to see like what you're doing wrong and like why you made an error. But a lot of times it's like better to like see what you're doing right and being like,
Mm.
hey, that's a good kill. Why'd I get that kill?
Mm.
Like, was it just a really good set, like perfect timing, no block, like whatever? Or did you make a smart move and like how can you replicate that? And like it's just
Yeah, yeah. When I set up film, and again, you've now had two college coaches, direct film for you, and certainly the staff at Wentworth, they have their own way of doing things, and I can't say enough about the staff at Wentworth. I love those guys; they do a real good job. But the way I did it, especially at the high school level, I mean, really, it came down to here's our system, here's the vision, and this is what we're trying to show. It's supposed to look like this, and anytime it didn't look like my vision, I would correct it and explain why. And I think, you're right. Like as a player, that you start watching film and you're looking at yourself and you're looking at people score, and it's kind of like, all right, that's great, but that's not going to get you to the next level. The next level is the understanding what happened. I think you worded it perfectly there. Why did this work? Why was I able to get this? Was it because, like you said, timing was great, no block? Or was it because I got an approach when I shouldn't have? And or maybe years prior I wouldn't have, and now I'm actually getting that approach and I'm getting a full rip or whatever it may be. I mean, it's a kind of a poor example, but you get my meaning on it. And that's the better way to watch film. Problem is, you start watching too much film, you start diagnosing it and become less of a fan.
yeah,
It's harder to be a fan of volleyball when you watch a lot of film. That's what I've sort of learned. But the other thing I liked is that you used to ask questions all the time, and certainly after every practice, you'd come up, "Hey, what did you see? Is there things I can work on?" I always thought that was outstanding. I mean, it actually made me as a coach really conscious of what you were doing often, and it allowed me to sort of piece together parts that, all right, this is doing well, but this is what needs to be focused on right now, and this is doing well, but now this needs to be focused on. I wish more players would do that, and
yeah,
I know some coaches don't respond to it as well, but I mean, I loved it. I mean, quite frankly, the only player that was that consistent with it, always wanting to know more about the game, how I viewed it, what you could do to get better, all that fun stuff. I think that's something that's made you pretty successful.
I like to think so, and I really liked coming up to you because it made practices like not easier, but it made me feel like you were always watching and like ready to critique me if there was something that I was like doing poorly, or like oh there was always something like that I could do better. And like
Mm.
I remember when Jack was your assistant coach, and like I would even like turn to him and be like, hey, can you like watch my serve receive for a little bit? And like he had very similar ideals to you after playing for you for 3 years. Uh,
Yeah, 2.5, 3 years.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he's I miss those times. I mean, now that we've grown a little bit and Jack's has his own team, I sort of miss not having Jack or Ben Lind on my bench because like that, I sort of lean on those guys pretty hard. But yeah, I mean, Jack, Jack's high level. I mean, Jack's a very, very good player, and he's the Pete Werme of his generation. Like Worm was really, really good. Same sort of style, brute force, but very smart as well. Makes good plays. Tough server. Um, Deceptively funny. I mean, I think Jack's one of the funniest dudes I've ever met. Like, I enjoy his wit often, and I felt the same way about Pete Werme. Like, you know who Pete is, right? You've played with him on
yeah.
the beach, and
So,
yeah, Worm's deceptively funny. I mean, he and I have this long going comic thing going that since since 2007 or 8, and I always enjoy it. Again, one of those people that you always enjoy when you run into them. You're like, oh my gosh. We should talk more than we do. All right. So now we make the pivot and we go to Wentworth, right? So Wentworth, different ball game. What was the biggest challenge taking that step up from high school to college?
Um, like one of the first things that I noticed was that I was by far the shortest person on the team. That was new for me. Um, in Rhode Island, like I wasn't like small and like
Mm-mm.
um I never felt like I had like small presence on the court either. Like a lot of times when like teams would play against NK, it would be like, hey, where's number 11?
That's
Like,
right.
and like I could take up a lot of court and serve receive, and like even blocking wise, like I was able to like push over and help out with the middles a lot, like as much as I could. But as soon as I got to Wentworth, it was like, oh, I feel small. And like I don't have a big presence here. Like I'm a freshman coming in, like all these guys have played for probably longer than me because they're coming from all around the country. Or they probably started earlier than me, and like it was just very tough mentally to be like, wow, I'm like a rookie here and
Mm.
not someone that's like supposed to come in and like dominate a game.
Mhm.
Like that's not my role anymore. And
And
that
that's the normal feel, by the way. Normal feel for most athletes when they go from the high school to the college level is, you know, I'm a rook. I have to start all over again. And a lot of times that transition's very, very hard because you're the man on your team. Like, I mean, you've explained it beautifully. I'm not going to try to recreate that. You've explained it excellently. You have this presence and you're this really strong player. And then now it's starting all over again. So how did you take on that challenge?
I mean, for me it was actually pretty easy because the other people that played my position or like even um like some of the outsides or whatever, they'd be hey, um, come, take more reps, do whatever. Like, I would be like hesitant to be like, hey, can I like hop in the outside line? Because like I wasn't really recruited as an outside. I was recruited as a libero. So it was like I want to take outside swings, but I was nervous to like get in that line. And
Hmm.
like Labou would be like, hey, Mason, like come take some swings. Like you talked to me about this like 2 days ago. Like come swing. And like it was very welcoming for like them to all like take me in, and
Mm.
it really helped that transition. And like um the other libero that was there, like he was super friendly, so it was super easy to just like talk to him all the time, like hear what he's seeing, hear what like uh how he like controls the court and like plays the game. And like it was just really nice to like be absorbed into the program and not
Yeah.
feel like I was a rookie.
That's the testament of the culture that Coach Giglio has sort of provided in there, because that doesn't happen as often as you would think, right? Like you would think that, hey, every team should be like that, but a lot of times it can be pretty cutthroat. So the idea of, hey, we're a family, we're a group that's going to work together, and we're gonna, everyone's gonna support everybody else. It's pretty outstanding. It's good to hear because I know I've had teams that did not meet that standard. Like you do everything you can, and I've said it a bunch of times on these interviews. Like you do everything you think you can to promote that culture, and sometimes you still don't get it right, and then your
Yeah.
teams are just sort of not great. I mean, my last year, we were as talented as anybody, but our culture was pretty poor, and it sort of showed. We lost some matches we shouldn't, but then we won some too. So it's here nor there, but that's not what the coach is going for. Like the coach, especially the Division 3 level, although I would argue D1, D2, they're aiming for the same thing. Same with NAIA, is they're aiming to have a program where the players care about each other and they support each other. Because if you do that, people are going to reach heights. If you have a situation where people are in a dog eat dog constantly, no one's comfortable, no one's happy, everyone's afraid of what's going to happen, you're not going to be able to cultivate your talent, and you're not going to win those big matches when you need to. So it's great to hear. I'm glad that that's the environment that you found yourself in. I mean, I remember when Giggs contacted me and he's like, hey, do you think Mason Andre could start for the defending GNAC championship Wentworth Leopards? And I said, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you should go get him if you can. and and he followed through, which is great. So cool, very cool. And what was the toughest part about adjusting to the college game?
The speed, the speed is
Mm,
very fast.
mm-hmm,
Um, like those times in high school where I felt like I could sit in the middle of the court as a blocker and still make it to my assignment on the right. Like I couldn't really do that as like when I was even like in the open gym, like scrimmages, I'd be like, I have to bail on the middle really early so I can
mm,
actually make a good block move and make it out to my assignment because everything is fast and
mm,
everyone is big and it's just a huge difference from the high school to college game. The serve receive, you have to be so trusting in like the people you're passing next to. Like if you say seams left, it's seams left. Don't step right. Like
yeah, yeah.
because if you get in someone's way, like you're gonna get aced. Like
Yeah.
there is no like other
it,
option.
and
It's
you guys are all huge too, so you'll knock each other out. I've seen
unless you
some
get really
collisions.
yeah, unless you get really good at like crossing and like understanding like the people you're passing next to, like it is very difficult to step out of your seam and try
Mm.
and take the ball. Like
And you were generally with Labou, and who was the other outside? It was Eder, Sam.
same matter, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys got a nice, good little rapport going. Everyone knows their role.
For the most part, there were absolutely some times when like there was one match where um like me and Sam bumped into each other like 4 or 5 times like in a row. Like a couple balls dropped in between us because then neither of us went, and it was not a good look for either of us. But we eventually figured that out, and I think it got better by the end of the season.
Yeah, I was always amazed at how much people tried to serve Labou. Like, I was always fast. I mean, because truth in advertising, I was also one of the broadcasters for Wentworth men's volleyball, so I'd be up there a lot. And you'd watch these matches, and like I know the big guy's big, and I know, you know, maybe the idea is to get him tired, but the dude passes pretty darn well. I don't know why we're serving him over and over again. Maybe they're afraid of you, Mason.
Sure, we can say that. My thought has always been like if you're gonna serve Laboo, like you serve him tough to get him out of system, and like if you don't get him out of system, then that
It's
sucks for you.
over. Yeah,
But
it's over.
um, like if you can get him out of system and you can get him to step late on his approach or get him no approach, it makes it a lot easier to defend, but still not easy.
Hmm. Yeah, I guess that's where I was sort of fascinated, because if you're jump top spinning the kid, and he's not passing balls above the antenna. I mean, it's not super high, but he's still putting it right to target. It doesn't change his tempo at all. Like if anything, and I know Gilio will love this. I mean, I would serve him short. Like I would bring that kid up as far as possible and make sure he has no approach at all and see what could happen. But I mean, at 6'9" with the arm like that, I mean, he's only he's only missing as much as he wants to miss.
Yeah. Not
Which is
a
pretty.
not an easy person to stop.
No, 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 not at all. So, best college moment? What do you got now? I mean, you've had 1 year and you've won a GNAC championship. I mean, it's pretty darn cool.
Uh, Winning the GNAC was definitely huge for us. Like,
Mm,
or for me, I don't know if it was huge for everyone else on the team, like to win back-to-back years, but um, for me, that was just such a cool experience to like be on the court for a good portion of the season and like to actually feel like I was a big part of like winning that championship. Like that was so cool to me and like um to just feel like at that point like I was playing at a college level with a bunch of guys at a very high level and like I was just part of like the team. I
mm,
wasn't the rookie that I came in. I wasn't like the high school All-American. Like
mm,
I was the Libero on Wentworth, and
mm-hmm,
that was my role. And
mm,
like to finally feel like, oh my God, we just accomplished like this huge thing, like as a team. Um, like that was really cool for me. And like going to the NCAA tournament, like that was just such a cool experience to even like be there, not even touch the court yet, just to like be in that environment and be like, wow, like we're on like a huge stage, and
Mhm.
then to play against St. John Fisher, who we had lost to earlier in the season, like that was super cool to like. I feel like we played really well against that team in the second set beyond.
Yeah, first
Um,
that was a little ugly.
a little bit.
But,
Um, but
and without Coach Giglio, like he had just had a baby and he wasn't there, and because I was watching it, and then I was like, "Hey, Evan's not on the bench. Where is he?" And then I immediately texted him like, "Dude, what's going on? Where are you? You all right? I just had a baby." I said, "Oh, okay,
yep.
congratulations. That's awesome." Yeah.
Um,
And then you
little
guys
baby
lost to
Nolan.
Nolan, yeah. And then you guys lost to the eventual champs, right? Stevens won the whole thing. Oh,
Mhm.
and you lost in four. So
Yep. We had a nice 15-10 lead in the second set, which we unfortunately gave up, but it was still a really good time and felt really good to be
oh
on
yeah.
that stage. And
Oh yeah. Absolutely. And then, that GNAC championship, I mean, that was a harder grind than last year's. I mean, last year that team was a little bit more experienced. There's a lot more, returners and upperclassmen on that team. So, to me, it was kind of interesting because it's very similar, um, like corresponding feeling to that NK team. Whereas like the year before, loaded wins the whole thing, and then the year after that, bunch of new people, bunch of new faces, and it's a little tougher and it's more of a grind, but in the end you came out on top again. So pretty interesting.
it's
Sports is
definitely
fun.
cool having at least like two freshmen on the court like most of the season. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely a pretty good group of freshmen that
Oh yeah.
a
What's
couple of hard
different?
workers.
Yeah, what's different between the grind of high school versus the grind of college? Significantly harder, longer?
I don't know. It kind of depends on like how you view like what you're doing.
Mm,
Like at Wentworth, like coach makes sure like you're doing well in classes. So like school is a very high priority for us, and like you make your own schedules. So if you schedule where like your days are going to be full and you're going to be come to practice mentally tired and you're not going to go to the gym, like you can like slack off, but you won't see much court time if
mhm.
like you slack off during practice and like you don't manage your time and you go to bed at 2 in the morning every night and like you're not doing what you're supposed to. And in high school, I feel like it's a little easier to like manage your time because you have a set like, okay, I'm going to school in the morning, I'm gonna be out at this time, and then practices basically right after
Right.
or your game. And like you still have time like to go to the gym if you want to, and like you can set aside time for film, and homework is not as tough as it is in college. So it's a little easier to focus on volleyball if that's something you're passionate about. Um, but definitely in high school, like you need to find ways to set aside time to watch film, to like fully block out school when you're at practice and be like, okay, now it's time to focus and like truly lock in so I can get better, so I can see the court, so we can see a championship. Like,
Did you find because this happens often as well for freshmen and rooks, that there's sort of a wall that you hit about three-quarters of the way through the season? It's pretty standard. I mean, I actually, I used to talk about it a lot when I was at Johnson and Wales. All right, well, so and so, if we were leaning on a rookie or a freshman pretty hard, like right around three-quarters of the way, he's going to hit a wall, and we're going to have to figure out a way to kind of rejuvenate him because you play what, I don't know. How many matches do you play in high school? Like you play like 15, 20 maybe if
stuff
you're
like that.
lucky. And then, that's three-quarters of the way there with college, because then you're usually playing 30 plus, and especially if you're doing what you guys are doing, which are winning the conference championship and then playing two extra, three extra, four extra, whatever it may be after the fact, you can be up there pretty good.
Uh, I don't know if I hit a wall, but there was definitely a period where I did need to like get remotivated and
Mm,
pushed again. Um, like there were a couple like games and practices where I was like really hard on myself because I was like, I'm like so mentally tired, but like I need this passing right now, and I just couldn't do it. Like I
mm,
couldn't get myself to make a make a three pass for like a full practice. And so then like the next day I would come to practice just already frustrated because I was like, I had terrible practice yesterday, like um that really like messed me up for
mm.
like a good week. And
Yeah.
it took um Coach Dave, who ended up head coaching during the NCAA tournament, he like came over and he was like, all right, let's do like some serve receive reps after practice or before practice, or like we're gonna get like you and another guy and we're just gonna like work a little bit and get you get your footwork back, get your platform like out really early, and just like little critiques that like can let you get back into it and like just off the circuit machine. So it's really just gonna be at you, but like just refocus in so that when you can come back to practice tomorrow, like you can see a tough serve and hopefully stick it.
Yeah, not feel like you're losing everything. I think that's a great idea. I'm glad that he did that. I think that's outstanding. Just getting you feeling confident just in minor ways when you're doubting due to mental fatigue. That makes a ton of sense to me. Really well done.
Yeah.
What is got a couple more questions for you before I let you go. And again, really appreciate your time, Mason. Really awesome stuff, man. What's one thing that you think all players should know that they may not know? And that could be high school or college, but probably more directed to high school players that are thinking about playing at the college level.
When you're taking an approach to swing, it's much better to be late than be early. Don't be at the net already and have no approach and have no power when you're jumping. Um, like even at college level with Wentworth, like a lot of our outsides, like as soon as we get into high ball, like they're already at the net and
Mm,
like the setter hasn't even touched the ball. So like we had to work practices for hours, being like, hey, slow down, like be late. Your setters are gonna give you time. Like you have plenty of time. You don't need to rush anything. And that was definitely something like in high school and like even club, like when Matt sent like three off, three in, and I'm already on my second step before he's like touched the ball. And so I would have no approach and I would just take like a two step. And being a short player, I needed to have a full approach. And when I didn't
mhm.
get that, it made hitting a lot harder.
Absolutely. That 3 feet off, 3 feet in set, man. I mean, that's something that we trained all the time at club, trained all the time at college. I'm assuming you guys trained it pretty hard at Wentworth as well, or did some sort of version of it. I mean, certainly Coach Gilio and the crew might have a different version of how they want to run that. But yeah, stay behind. I mean, we all have sort of that version of cue there. Stay behind, come late, do fun stuff, but keep the ball in front. But yeah, that's it's amazing how many people are going in fast. And it's funny, it becomes recognition, right? Like, can you recognize when you're in system and when you're out? At the club level, that was one of our biggest challenges, especially with this team that I'm working with now with our pins. Like some of them like to come in real hot, real fast. And it's like we're out of system. Like we're not at that point. We're not coming in fast. We're doing something completely different.
Yep,
But the recognition part is key. And again, playing a lot, watching film, asking questions. That's how you get there, I think. All right, cool.
I agree.
And then I know inquiring minds want to know what does your game day prep look like, man?
Lots of water.
Yeah,
Drink water.
yeah,
Stay hydrated. Even like the night before, need to stay hydrated so that your body is awake and ready to play. Um, I would always try and like get a roller, just get my muscles like a little bit loose. Um, I never tried to like overstretch, but if something was particularly like bugging me that day, like spend a little extra time like working that out.
mhm,
Um, just try and get mentally focused and focus on the game, like visualize what you're gonna do and how you're gonna come out. And That was really
What's
funny.
in what's in your bag when you that's one thing that I think a lot of players, they're afraid to ask me, and I'm not going to go out of my way and be like, hey, this is what you should have in your backpack and your duffel bag when you're getting prepped for play. What would you suggest what do you have when you go to different tournaments or different, sites or different locations?
For club especially, my bag would always be filled to the brim, sometimes overflowing, because I would bring my own roller. I would have like 2 or 3 knee braces, just like keep a clean one on me. I just had like 4 t-shirts because I liked having a clean one, and like maybe it was a little chilly, so I'd put my long sleeve on, or like it was just always like layers to have on. I always had like Pedialyte or Gatorade. Like um, sometimes I had like a little like yellow band that was pretty small, and I could just like warm my shoulders up, and I just had like always something to do, like to.
Yeah. I see guys come in and they have nothing in their backpack but like a bar. And I'm like, dude, that's not enough. When I used to play basketball and even when I used to play volleyball, I was the same way. I have all these different things for whatever might happen, right? Maybe my shorts rip. I have an extra pair of shorts. Maybe my socks rip. I have, another pair of socks. Maybe my shoes, I bust through laces. Having extra laces is huge in case things go breaking down. But just prep for the entire day, for the entire match, and think of everything that could possibly go wrong and have a counter for it. I think that
Yeah.
matters a ton. And do you have any post game rituals match is over, win or lose, gave everything you got, then what do you do?
Uh, well, after or during this college season, my parents would come to a lot of games, and being away from home, that hit me a couple times
Mm.
during the year. I started to get a little homesick, so seeing them, like, it always the first thing I would do after like I took my shoes off, put a clean shirt on so I didn't smell terrible, and I would go over and like see my parents, give them a hug,
Very
like
cool. But
then
after
just
that, like volleyball wise, like one of the things, the reason I ask is that I've had a couple athletes that I work with and players that I've worked with as well, just when I used to play. Like a lot of times they're either exasperated because they're exhausted, like they've just used all their mental focus on this particular event, and sometimes they crash, they go to sleep. I've had other guys that I've worked with that are just they can't go to sleep for another 2 hours. Like they're just totally energized from what just happened. And they're just like they need to go do something else. I've seen guys like go ride, the mechanical bike after a full match or after a full tournament. And I would look at them like they're crazy. Like I'm one of those guys that when the event's over and everything's done, like my head can't hit the pillow fast enough. Like I'd sort of, I've given everything I have. I need to reset somehow, some way, and that's what I do. So that's sort of the genesis of the question.
mm. um usually I would try and get like a little bit of a stretch just to like cool down, and then most of the time me and the other freshmen, sometimes the sophomores would go to our dining hall, get something to eat, and then we would just go back and chill. Like only one of us ran around, and that's because he has really bad ADHD. Uh,
Yeah.
but most of the time it would
Oh,
just be us chilling.
cool. Very cool. All right. Well, any other uh points that you want to go over for any aspiring volleyball players before I let you go?
Ask a lot of questions. Questions are huge. Um, whether it's a high school club coach, Scott Reslow, like
The
questions are
ResV.
huge. ResV systems.
Well, I mean, one of the things I don't know if you caught this, whatever I've done so many videos now, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. But one of them, I was talking about how most coaches in the volleyball world are desperate to give information. Like we want to help. And actually players are like that too. I mean, maybe you can back my play on this, but like we love talking about the game and we love helping people get better at it. Like it's so like asking somebody who's better. I'm sure you have picked the brain. You already talked about picking the brain of a fellow Libero, but I'm sure you've talked to Labou. I'm sure you've talked to some of the other guys that are high level. But coaches, players, we want to talk about the game. So always feel free to ask questions because we're going to try to steer you the right way. It's one of the things that made it different than basketball for me, because in basketball it was very dog eat dog and there wasn't a lot of sharing of information. Volleyball world's really different. um, all of us are like, yeah, let's talk. This is how I do it. This is what I see. This is what I think should happen. Hey, you could do this and maybe this will help. There's all those types of conversations that occur. And I think, you're absolutely right. Be eager to do it and don't feel like it's a bother. It's actually going to be really awesome to talk about volleyball with somebody. So just go do it. And then the other thing, and I'm sure you can back it up as well, is that it's going to take work. Like, you're not going to be able to just do it in once. I mean, how many hours do you think you've put in playing the game, Mason? A gazillion?
Couldn't tell you. I could not put a number to it.
Yeah.
Um, between the amount of beach and club and training and like it's a lot of
Mhm.
hours. And then even like going to JTAB training, like working with Joey, like I consider that like part
Oh
of
yeah.
my improvement to
Yeah.
like getting better at volleyball. Like a lot of it is just like getting stronger, but um when I go and talk to Joey and I'm like, hey, like I need to get my vertical up. I need to get faster. I need to like do whatever. Like he can tweak my program and he can make it more suited to like what I'm looking to do. And like that definitely like has been a big part of my
Yeah.
improvement.
Yeah. And then last question, how how has your view been on failure? Like, one of the things, that we've talked about already a bunch is the amount of hours it takes, the amount of prep it takes, all that fun stuff. And at the same time, your volleyball's hard. Like, you're gonna have bad days. You're gonna have days there where it's just not gonna work, and it's not, like, why am I shanking all these passes? Like, everything I'm doing is the same I've been doing before, but for some reason I'm just not having it. You know, Ho- what's your final, again, final thought on addressing failure and dealing with failure as you push through?
You have to fail. Like it will happen. There is no way around it. Like everyone's gonna fail. Um, and like you kind of just have to take it like with a grain of salt. Like it just might not be your day. You kind of have to just
Mhm.
like brush it off and like not give up on the day, but kind of just move on and like think about tomorrow. And like, yeah, you might not be passing well today, but try and focus on something else. Like maybe work on your blocking, or if defense isn't your strong suit today, like work on your serve. Even your serve isn't working that day, like then do something else. Find something that like is working that day and like get better at that.
And build
Like
on it. Yeah. I'll never forget, like, Bulla, who's Steve Santanastasio, who I always screw up his last name, but he's a good friend of mine. And I was frustrated about something that was happening at JWU, and he just looked at me and goes, "Volleyball's hard. Like, just understand it. There's going to be a lot of times where it's not going to work. But when it does work, because of all the hours that you put in to battle the fact that it didn't work that time, it's going to be great." And I always thought that was the thing to tell people. Like, it's hard. If it was easy, everyone could play it, and not many, and not many people do. Although it is the, second most played sport in the world, but be good. Like, you're gonna fail a lot. Mason, man, thank you so much for your time today. Great job. Really enjoyed our conversation. Always feel free to come back. You can be on the show anytime you like, and you're always welcome at my gym. You know that. If I just don't have a gym right now, but if I did, you would be welcome in there. And certainly everybody, hope you enjoy these interviews. I think they're outstanding and a lot of great people that we've had on. We're going to continue to have really high level volleyball people talking about the sport, talking about the prep, talking about the mentality, how they do it. And, feel free to like, share, and subscribe, which I hate that I say that because it sounds so cheesy and stupid, but that's what you got to say these days. And so everyone have a great weekend, and we'll get back to it next week. Thanks, Mason.
of course, thank you.